Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Wayne McCullough, and today on Alumni Pride, we truly have one of the men that I respect as much, if not more, than any man in our community, any man that's ever graduated from Sekonic High School, and I'm talking about Bob Williams, who's with me from the class of 1952. So Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Wayne.
Many of you remember Bob as being the former president of the Glen Rock State Bank. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'll tell you a couple stories later on about that. And but Bob is still active, not only in the community, but here in many things that we do at the school. A member of our Alumni Association Steering mm-hmm. Committee, a member of the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, mm-hmm. a member of the Foundation, mm-hmm. Southern York County School District Foundation. That's probably just naming a few, so you're still very active. I guess first, Bob, give us a little idea about your experience at Sekonic High School. You were the part of the first graduating class mm-hmm. here from Sekonic High School. Reminisce a little bit.
Well, back as juniors in New Freedom High School, we found out that we were going to be consolidated with Cadorce and Glen Rock High Schools. So we thought we'd better have some parties because we wouldn't get to know our classmates so well. Okay. So we had a Halloween party that fall and had dances and had summer party picnics. And we went to Sekonic as a Sekonic High School in Glen Rock with 64 students in the senior class. And we were the smallest class naturally, and we still have about 58 of those 64 students still surviving. About February and March, we moved over here to the Sekonic. The gym floor wasn't finished. A week before graduation, they just finished the auditorium so we could have graduation in the auditorium. And there were a lot of places to hide from teachers, and there weren't as many teachers. We used to have to pack a lunch. There was no cafeteria available to us. And it was just a lot of, it was just a growing experience, learning new people, learning new teachers, and just seeing all the changes now that I've had in the last 55 years.
One of the things that's always amazed me is when you look back at the newspaper articles for when the high school opened, just a great pride the community had in bringing mm-hmm. the smaller schools together and bringing them into, at that point, a state-of-the-art building.
Yeah, and each school had their own school board. And yeah. Even the township's country schools had their school boards, and each borough had theirs. I don't know how many years it was till they went to voting entirely one's board.
Well, that joint school board actually was still active up to a couple years ago with paying debt and some other things. But you're right, they joined school boards from all those communities and still had a joint school board.
And it was a large school board at that time too.
Yeah, just amazing. But again, the thing that amazed me always was the pride.
Yes.
That when they built this school, they wanted it to be a state-of-the-art building with industrial arts, with home economics, with music facilities, and truly in the 1950s it was.
Yes, we had everything. We had to work for it, but it was worth it in the long run. Yeah. And we got to know so many more new classmates, and the larger school was really enjoyable. And we still got our education here.
Do you have any pleasant memory or something of a homecoming dance or something like that you would remember?
I don't remember homecoming dance. I can remember my junior prom at New Freedom High School. I was the only junior that had a date, and the only reason I did that is I was president of our class. Okay. When it came to our senior prom, we had it at the Shrewsbury Fair Hall, and I went to Stag and didn't have much money because we just came back from our class trip. Okay. But we got to know our classmates much better than they do now when you have 400 in your class against the 60 that we had. And we're still close to the ones that are living local.
After you went to the high school, tell us about where you went and what led to your career in banking and ultimately as president of the Glen Rock State Bank.
Well, I think the Lord led me there. When I look back at it, at the time I didn't realize that, but I started working as a trade for a tool and die maker at the American Insulator in New Freedom in 1952. Had worked part-time up until then with Hartenstein Mortuary and Funeral Home and furniture store. But then I went in the service in 1954. I had this young gal I was sort of sweet on, whose father had a store in Hungerford, a butcher shop. When I came home from the service, he asked if I wanted to work for him. So in 1956, I worked for him. And right up the street, there was a director of the Glen Rock State Bank came to me, approached me one day and said, "Would you like to work in the bank?" So I said, "I'll look into it," because I knew my father-in-law was going to retire soon, and I didn't want to be a country butcher and meat cutter the rest of my life. So I started the bank in '64. Yes, and it was just fortunate because several years later I became ill, and I had an amputation, below the knee amputation in 1974, and also one in 1984. And I couldn't have been a meat cutter or a butcher then, so I think the Lord was leading me there to work in the bank, and where I could have it not as a physical job. In the last number of years, it was a sitting job. In 1988-89, I became president of the bank, and I worked there until 1999, until I retired. And I was 65 on a Monday, and I worked the rest of that week, so I gave them a full time to retirement. And it was a very good place to work. Now it's known as community bank. They've been sold to community banks.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of neat though when you look back at the tradition of the communities and so forth. Even though the name changed from Glen Rock State Bank to Community Bank, the old Glen Rock State Bank, which is true for the People's Bank, really were community banks.
Oh yes.
You know, I remember, for example, for me, my parents banked there, my grandparents banked there, I banked there, and when I needed my first car loan, I came to you, and I remember sitting down, being nervous as all get out, asking for a car loan, and it really was, you knew everyone that came in the bank, and you knew the tellers, you knew the president of the bank, you knew everyone that you worked with. I mean, it really was a focus on the community.
Yeah, we were, you know, we're a small bank, but we got to know people and tried to treat them like we would be wanted to be treated. And when I first started there, if you wanted a mortgage application, you went next door to see Mr. Geipel, and he just took it down, the application down on a little piece of paper. And so for a board meeting, now it's a big, long form you have to fill out, a lot of strings, and you just can't work like you did years ago because of the regulations. But I can remember waiting on your father many a time when he would come in with the deposits from your grandfather's grocery store, well, the Country Kitchen and the supermarket.
Right.
Both of them.
Smith's Quality Supermarket.
Quality Supermarket. Forgot the quality, yes.
But it was, what a neat community though to grow up in. I know it was for me, and it was because of people like you. And what was nice is, I guess as I reminisce about the community, it didn't matter if you were going to the grocery store, if you were going to the bank, if you're going to the doctor's office, it didn't matter because everybody knew each other. And that's why people like you've had such great influence on people in my generation as they've grown up, and probably sometimes not even realizing the influence you had on them.
Well, I think that influence I may have had on you, thank you for the compliment, but I think that influence was also given to me by the people in New Freedom where I was raised. And you knew everybody in town. It was much smaller than it is now. And if I misbehaved on one side of the town from where I lived, that story got home before I did. So, you know, everybody was concerned about all the youth in town, that they did the correct things. And there was a closeness, like just a large family there.
Because, again, when I took my first car loan out, it wasn't a matter of, I mean, it was almost like coming and having a counseling session. You know, tell me how to do it. Are you sure you're, you know, is that how, you know, the right amount of money that you want to borrow? So it wasn't just me going there and saying, I want $5,000 for a new Volkswagen Rabbit. You know, it was you saying, you know, make sure that you have the right amount, or you're thinking about this, or you're thinking about that. But I guess the funniest story, and I've heard you tell this, is my senior year going down and taking money out to go to the senior class prom and seeing you there and kind of feeling embarrassed that I had to withdraw money to go to the prom that night.
And it hurt you to take that money away.
It did, it still would.
And it wasn't much in comparison to today's time now.
I think I probably got $10 or $15 out to go, you know, to go to the prom.
Going back to your family again, I think of your grandfather, John Smith, that the homes that he built, not big homes, but they were good homes in Glen Rock. And people could not afford, did not have enough down payment to come to the bank for a mortgage. He would let the money in till they got enough down payments, and then they would come to the bank. I mean, he helped many a family get their start there in Glen Rock, and I think that's influence that come down to you also, what you've done for the community and are still doing. You've just been a lot of people don't realize what you've done for the school district, but also for the communities you live in.
Thank you. No question about it. You grew up in an atmosphere where the community was the most important thing.
Yes.
And you had to give something back, and you had to be a part of it, and you wanted to be a part of its life. No question about that. That's the environment that we grew up in. Some of that's changed. We still have a lot of that in our community, and we have a great community, but some of that has changed just because of the transient nature of people coming and going, I think, with the occupations and so forth now.
Well, the communities have grown so much. There are so many more people there now. You just can't get to know everybody in town like you did before.
Yeah.
Now, I moved to Shrewsbury 50 plus years ago, so I still haven't moved far.
Tell us about your experience in the service. You talked about being in the service.
Well, I was very fortunate. When I was in third grade, starting third grade, my mother bought me a cornet because I wanted to play a cornet. When I was a junior, she bought me a trumpet. When I went in the service and basic training, they asked if anybody wanted to try out for the band. Well, I was one of the first in line, and fortunately I made the band. So I spent a year and a half in Berlin with the Iron Curtain was still there at that time, playing in the band. And every Wednesday we would play at the different refugee camps. There was probably 40 or 50 refugee camps in the area. We'd go out and give a concert, and anytime some big wig would come into town, we'd have to play for them. So you got a lot of experience, and that's something I've carried on all these years. I'm still playing. I play at church every Sunday with the hymns, and one Sunday a month I have an offertory. And I still enjoy playing. It gets more difficult as age. And you were a drummer.
Yes.
Do you still drum?
They're collecting more dust than not right now, but every now and then I get them out, yes. Yeah. Well, you played in the Brubeck's band also, didn't you?
I played in the Southern York County Band, and I helped with Brubeck's band and the Leisure Band. And I played in the York City Band for a little while, and then a couple of dance bands in the area. And the last little group I played in, I guess, would be the music band. With about 5 or 6 of us got a German band together. We played pretty regular, a lot of fun, just for fun, not for the money.
Right.
But it's a lot of fun, and you enjoy it, and I still enjoy it.
Here in Alumni Pride, we're talking with Bob Williams, a class of 1952. That's pretty impressive.
That many years ago, I know that's what's impressive to you.
No. You're still involved in a lot of things the school does. One of the things you're really active in is the Alumni Association. I know you spend a lot of time researching names and addresses, and because one of the missions of the Alumni Association is try to allow people to still have contact with classmates, and so it's important that we have a way to keep those contacts, and names and addresses and just knowing where people are is a big part of that. But why you're interested in that Alumni Association, Bob?
Well, because I was in the first class to graduate, and I just, I had my wife graduated from here, my daughters graduated from here, I had one granddaughter has graduated, and one will be graduating this year. Yeah. So I guess I'm at home here. And I wanted to stay involved in the school as long as I can, and maybe just help where I can.
You've also been part of that district foundation, the Southern York County District Foundation, from the beginning, and you've seen that grow immensely also. That's just a tremendous group.
And the superintendent's advisory, I've been in that from the beginning, and that's been a lot of information we've gotten, what's going on in the school district, and just keep in touch what's happening. Because right now, I'm concerned about my granddaughters, plus the other kids the other children I have got to know. I saw in the judge don't like them to call them kids anymore, but there's the young boys and girls, and I've come close to some of them just by coming over and attending different things at school.
What really I find unique about so many people in our community, and you're part of that, is even though their children are out of school, obviously you have grandchildren here, but still their interest in a good quality education being provided here in our community, and I know that's important to you also. Well,
sure. I mean, that's we want the boys and girls to get a good education so they can go out and become a part of the people, the population, and earn decent livings and raise a family according to the standards that I feel that young children should be raised.
The other thing, and I know you do a lot of this, is there's so many opportunities here at the school to attend concerts, to attend sporting events, all those kind of things. And I really believe if people would become more involved with the school, they would enjoy what they see, and they would enjoy the things that our young people are doing. And I know you attend a lot of those kind of things.
Yeah, my wife and I enjoy coming to football games and home games when the weather's decent. This year we had so many rainy ones. And we like to go hear the band and the choir, chorus. And we have a tremendous band and music program here in the chorus. And my wife and 2 daughters both sing in the alumni chorus, which will be coming up this Sunday. I'm not sure what time.
I think it's 2 o'clock, but I'm not sure of that. Yes.
And they enjoy doing it.
Yeah, yeah. You talk about, we've talked about Bob's wife quite a bit. We should mention her. Nancy Williams has been a beautician in Shrewsbury since...
Nancy Keeney Williams.
There you go.
Her father had the meat store in what was formerly Hungerford at the railroad tracks in Shrewsbury for 50 years.
So how long has she been a beautician locally?
Well, she retired in April. She was in business for herself for about 34 years.
Was it that long? Mm-hmm. And I know your oldest daughter, Sue, also was part of that business for quite a few years also.
Yes. And she took a full-time position down at the Lutheran Home and is a beautician down there. So she works with the people down there and gets to meet and converse and help the people down there, men and women alike.
Yeah. As we get ready to wrap up, think of the high school in 1952 and now the high school in 2006. Tell us, what you recognize as changes, good and bad. Well,
the structure has gotten a lot larger. There's more opportunity for the children, the boys and girls, to take classes that we didn't have. We had the basic classes. In fact, when I was a junior and we were getting our classes for senior, I wanted to take academic chemistry, but they told me I couldn't take academic chemistry and play in the band. So what I did, I played in the band and took vocational chemistry.
That's something.
Because the band was, music was my interest, and that's something that I have carried on for all these years and I still enjoy. And we have a tremendous music program here.
It really is amazing. Yes.
And sports. The kid and I always watch to see what's happening in the paper with the sports. Saw where the Haas boy won 2 meet swimming last week, and follow the standings for all the teams.
Yeah. Well, here in Alumni Pride, we're talking to Bob Williams, a class of 1952, and as we get ready to wrap up, I say this in all sincerity, that there is no other man that I have as much respect for as Bob Williams. And we talk about why a little bit, and I don't mind reflecting on why just for a couple minutes. Not only is what he's done in our community during his working life, but is what he's done in and for our community outside his working life, still being very active in many aspects of the school district and the community. We've talked about a lot of those already today, Bob, but I can think of no better value for a man than what he can give back to his community. And because what you've done and your legacy is not only is what you can get out of the community, but it's what you can give back also, not only for your family, but also for the youngsters that have followed. What can be a better legacy?
Well, thank you, Wayne. I appreciate what you've done for me and what you're doing for the community. Thank you very much.
Okay, so for the class of 1952, Bob Williams, former president of Glen Rock State Bank, still active in the Southern York County School District community. Just a great man. We're very fortunate to have him as part of our community. I'm Wayne McCullough for Alumni Pride. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll catch you next time.